it began really many years ago when I was taking part in the recreations of Tudor life at Kentwell Hall, and they have there a really big pestle and mortar, and it's just such a primitive, lovely action. I began there when pounding nettles, because if you pound them the sting goes, and they perform remedies. But I use my collection at home. This particular one is the earliest form of, it's not an old one, but it's the oldest form of pestle and mortar. It has 3 legs and has been found archaeologically in Mexico. It's very heavy, very stable, and at the moment I'm grinding rock salt and pepper, and it will become as fine as you can put in a thing to shake it. I think I've got 23 now, because since I started talking about the collection for the museum, my friend has found me 2 more, and one of them won't come in the collection. It's not a very pretty one, but they're all different, they're all fascinating, and I love the feeling that this was the earliest form of domestic utensil, and it's thought to predate fire in the use of cooking. That when the early farmers, or grains, seeds, grass, berries, they would have ground them, they would have pounded them with either a stone or a piece of wood upon another piece of wood or stone. So I just feel it's a very primitive, ancient thing to do. But I use them. I make peanut butter in them, I grind eggshells, which I dry, and then I grind them up and give them back to the hens as grit, which gives them calcium. Now that is really, really recycling, isn't it, in this age?
I collect Pomanders, and I started collecting at the end of 1970s, so it's about 40 years ago. And my first one was a gift, and it went from there. I was so pleased with it, because I usually had sachets of sweet smelling lavender and what have you that I used to make, and this was the next stage up, having a nice, because I love china. So of course that started it off by looking out for Pomanders, and gradually I added to the collection, which is now over 600. As you can imagine, in the early stages I used to put the Pomanders all around the house. Every room had a Pomander, but of course it became unmanageable. Hence the cabinets in the hall, which now house all the Pomanders. The odd one sneaks out here and there, but that's all. Okay, perhaps I ought to show you some of my Pomanders. I should say they don't normally stay on the dining room table. At the moment, I've been through all these over 600 Pomanders to try and select some for an exhibition that the museum is running. Pomander, the word is French, it means apple, pomme. Sweet smelling. They're hundreds of years old. These are not new. Yes, the china is new, but Pomanders go back centuries. Here is one Pomander, which was quite commonly made at the time, with cloves. Other Pomanders are made with all range of herbs and spices for sweet smelling. If I go back, these are replicas, but will give you an idea of what was used in the olden days. The ladies would wear a girdle, and a girdle is a belt, and on that belt you would have the pomander, which often was in silver or gold. Some of these pomanders are special. For instance, this one came from Japan, and that's because my partner was over in Japan on business. This one's special because that was made specially for me in Canada by somebody that's not with us anymore. That one's a bit different and special because it's from Ireland, and all my family are from Dublin. This is very special because a friend collects the willow pattern. So that brings very lovely memories back from her as she bought this for me. My very special friend from school days bought that one for me. It's a florist. Florists have been operating since 1730. The first perfumers, and they're still operating. That's quite a history.
That one came from Africa. Where's his mate? Anywhere you can find them. It's obvious there's a big collection, and any car boot sale, antique shop, scrap merchants, anywhere we like to go, or I do get some from abroad. Nice poem here. You can push or you can shove, but I hanged if I'll be dove. All the way from Cheltenham. Been brought up with pigs. Pigs was I don't know, they're very intelligent animals, very. And apart from the lions, they've got no next most vicious bite out. Son got that when he was in Singapore. Bless him. And that one came from, made of China, is it? No. It's clay, isn't it? That's from clay, made of one sheet. The lady bent it round and it is now hollow. Years ago, daughter came home for a hero band's read. We went up to Ely to the boat festival and we took a picture of some of our pigs, and no, it's not here, and the potter up there made a caricature of the pig. And when I went to college, the lecturer went to Canada for holiday and he brought this back for us. And from those few, our pig collection started and went on. My wife was the main instigator of this pig collection, and it's kept going mainly in her memory. I was a smallholder, producing fat pigs for London, pork pigs for the London market, and I got used to the pigs there. I even had a ride on the back of the pig. I just remember it. I think he dipped me off in this mud. Mum wasn't too pleased. And from there on, he kept pigs right the way until I left home. And then after my agricultural business career, I went into the pig trade, and from there on, I kept pigs. I even kept my own pigs. Ginger ones, Tamworths. Very small pig on a horn, and in the body of the pig there's a magnifying glass, and with care you can see Colchester Castle, Jumbo, Botolph Gate, I think, and Botolph Priory in the, I think they said the 1890s. So you're going back some years.
My aunt bought me this when she went to the Vatican, probably when I was about 8, 10 years old. So that was the first one, and then I thought, well, that's nice. And then my parents went to Paris and bought me this one. So this is from the Ile-de-France in Paris. And that started a very large collection of French dolls, because all of these on this shelf here, the whole lot, are from different regions in France. And that's what really fascinated me in the first instance, because every region had a different costume and it was very different. For instance, here is Boulogne. Now, lots of us went as young children across to Boulogne on the ferry, and this lovely hat. And they all have different ways, either big hats or shawls, and you know which region you're looking at when you look at these dolls. Similarly, in the Netherlands, all of these in the middle here are from the Netherlands. And so you've got different regions of the Netherlands, even though it's a small country, they all are very different. And so again, that fascinated me. The other thing that I liked, particularly of the ones that you've got of the Czech Republic, they reflect the dances. So they reflect their costumes are wide skirts quite often, and they will dance their special Czech dancing. And I love national dancing, so that's one of the other reasons for collecting. One of my grandchildren a few years ago decided she'd start to count them, but she gave up when she got about 200, 300, and she thought, I can't do this. So I don't really know. I can start counting for you if I know. It'll take me a long time. Wherever we go in Europe, we buy a doll. So if we go to several regions of a country, we have actually had to buy another suitcase just for the dolls and teddies, because you can't sort of go to, say, France and say, well, I only want one French doll, because then you go to another area of France and you've got another French doll. So these, yes, that was the other thing about France. This is called a santon, and they are showing both the regional costume. This is one from Arles, from Provence, from this region, and this actually shows the people themselves wearing the costumes, and they still do wear them, but only at festivals and things like that.
The instances of it are what collectors go for. So I'll be walking round a market in Vienna, and all of a sudden I'll see a walking stick there. And I was walking away out of this, it was a flea market. It wasn't one of the big posh German markets. And all of a sudden he ran after me, chased on me, so, mein Herr. I thought, God, I've not paid him enough, or have I given him an outdated euro or something? And he came up, and I had to put his hand out. He said, I'm so glad the stick is going home. Oh. You know, it's those things that make collecting worthwhile, not going into a big posh shop.
So I'll do this, then we can. No, I think not.
Okay, I collect textiles because I enjoy stitching myself, and I've inherited quite a few family pieces. I think it's important to value people's creative crafts, then see how it changes as a document really of folk art. But as it's family and ancestors, matching photographs to pieces, hopefully it will be looked after and appreciated by my family, and it's small enough a collection to be portable. I have about 70 pieces. So this piece has literally just come out of its frame as it was stitched. This is crewel work, fine embroidery thread on linen. You can see all the sellotape marks where it was attached, but quite well stitched with butterflies and flowers, and I think the colours are quite vibrant when you think that that is best part of 100 years old. I want to show you different types of needlecrafts. This one is hand-stitched cut work, And it has really tiny buttonhole stitches all the way around the scalloped edge. You would cut away the rose pattern and then you would stitch it to stop it fraying with buttonhole stitches. It's roses, this is an Edwardian piece, and it's white on white, which a lot of embroidery was. This is a 1950s crochet table runners, a very, very fine crochet with a border, and it's got three-dimensional roses around the edge. So we've got white work through to crochet, whereas this one is very, very fine. It's 20th century, but I wouldn't like to date when. But it's knitted with regular garter stitch, in a round format as a mat. But that would have taken hundreds of hours because it would be on the smallest needles. This is the sort of needlework and knitting that they would do for baby layettes. That was quite popular all the way through there, from the 30s and beyond. This example here is a Japanese scene stitched by my great-grandmother, who I knew, who lived to be well into her 90s, who died in 1974, but quite a few bits of her pieces. And that's quite unusual because it's like the willow pattern plate. This is Mount Fuji here with Japanese pagodas, but a blue stitched piece, which even if you look on the back, the stitching is really quite fine. Of course, women, once it was dark, there was no TV, the wireless had only just come in, and my grandparents, this grandmother, would never allow electricity into her house. So even when I was a child, it was gas mantles and a black range, toilet outside. The radio, or the wireless as she called it, was the only thing that she would have that was modern in the house. She wouldn't even have a tap. I think she got a tap in about 1960. My family pieces, this is called Petit Point, which is the finest cross stitch or canvas work that you can get, which are minute stitches on the tiniest count of canvas. Very, very small stitches. So that's the lid for this box, and inside the box are various hand-stitched brooches, which is something they used to wear in the 20s and 30s. If they couldn't afford jewellery, they would make their own. So you would buy for a few shillings a very cheap basic tin mount with an early form of, well, I won't call it perspex, but some sort of clear plastic. And you would embroider your own, and during the war this is what they wore, because it was a cheap way of making jewellery to decorate your coats and jackets. So I would like to start a new collection of those. This is my grandfather, Gilbert Jennings, who was in Egypt as a desert rat during the war. He went over to Italy, and when he had a period in hospital from, I don't know if it was wounds or what it was, occupational therapy, a lot of it was stitching. So this is a pansy panel that he would have made while on active service during the war. It was a very popular pastime for servicemen because it was easy to fold up, carry with you with a few threads. So it was portable and easy to carry, and there were many, many boring hours. So it's something that quite a lot of servicemen did. This I've taken off a stool, but it was a stool cover that he made while he was serving in Egypt. And he says, oh, this is my Monty, because he was very fond of Montgomery. He thought he was a wonderful leader of men, even though he was a small weaselly man. And he says that's his Montgomery piece because he saw it. So that then sat on a stool in my grandmother's house for the next 40 years after the war. So I think men's stitching, we know of men were tailors, we know Jewish people. The tailoring trade comes from there, but today it's not valued, needlework and stitchery is not valued as a male occupation, even though you've got people like Kath Fassett who do wonderful designs for knitting, but they are rarity really. Having said that, I knew a man who was a wonderful Aran jumper maker, and he made them all for his wife and he dressmaid, so you know it's not completely female thing.